Dagher, and we were talking about his upbringing, his childhood, throughout the Civil War, throughout unrest. And he gives this amazing experience and technique to help you find peace, love, and to let go of the things that have really been, you've been holding into your body. This is not something you want to miss. Emmanuel, thank you so much for joining me. I'd like to ask you to introduce yourselves to those people who are watching.
Thank you so much. And thank you first and foremost, Lisa, for doing this, for just really stepping up in this way for not only our community, but for the world right now. It's much needed. And I am so, so grateful for you. I'm Emmanuel, as you know, and I'll give you a quick version. So having a very challenging upbringing. I grew up in the Civil War during Lebanon in the Middle East from the 80s and early 90s, and having suffered great loss, having gone through so much pain and suffering and sleeping on a cement floor for many years and having no warm water and sometimes no food for days, I can really, it's this time that we're in right now, just the changes and the shifts that are going on, it's really bringing up a lot of those old memories and experiences that I sort of thought I had put away and resolved and healed. But really it is bringing up a lot of stuff. And I think as a collective, we're all going through this together now, whereas before, when we would hear things going on in the Middle East, we'd say, oh, well, that's, that has nothing to do with me, so I'm just going to, tune it out. But ultimately, it really is now about all of us being in this together. And I think, and I believe more than ever that my spirit chose to go through such hardship, such loss, such pain at such an early age to cultivate compassion, to cultivate understanding, to root for the underdog. And so ultimately, I just call myself the person who champions underdogs and people who don't necessarily get to have a silver spoon or things are handed to them. I know what it's like to suffer, and through my own personal journey, having gone through a lot of that suffering, I learned how to really move through life in a way that honors my body, my mind, my spirit, rather than what's going on outside of me. I really brought it back inside of me. And I was able to heal scoliosis. I was able to heal a lot of skin issues that I used to have, psoriasis. I was able to witness healing for so many others simply through compassion and cultivating that compassion. And I know today we're going to talk about peace. And for me, peace is the undercurrent of who we are. It's the undercurrent of all of life. And our job is simply to return back to that aspect of ourselves. So I'm really excited to dive in. I didn't want to do the long version, but that's sort of the quick version.
I feel that this is so important. And thank you so much for sharing, because, what people see is they see us as spiritual teachers, spiritual healers, authors. We are the people that a lot of people look up to, but they don't see the story behind us. We may hint at it on stage. We may bring it into a part of a book. We may mention it on a blog. We may mention it on a Facebook Live. But really, there's such a core within us of our own hurt, our own pain, our own suffering that we have had to heal and not suppress. We've actually had to really embrace it and say, you know what, I gotta deal with this. And now we're bringing it out into the world, and we're helping to heal people. And this is incredible what you've done. If we look at where you've come from with regards to the Civil War to who you are now in California, you're an amazing author, teacher, healer. It is, and you've got all of these thousands of followers around the world that you have got this journey, but you've embraced your journey. And that's important. So if it's okay with you, let's go back to the when you grew up. How old were you when the Civil War was happening in Lebanon?
So it happened from the first memory that I can experience, so probably since day one until 11 years old. And so we lived in a convent, so there's a lot of interesting components to this. But my mom and I were lucky enough. I was the only boy living in a convent with all nuns. So I was in this cocoon that was a safe haven of sorts, but literally all around me, bombs and guns and tanks and military and all of this fighting and crazy chaos was happening, and I could hear it and I could see it. But I'm like literally living in a dungeon on a cement floor, making sure
Mm,
with my mom. And by the way, my mom had me at a really young age. She was 19, so we were very close. We grew up together. And one thing that we had and we knew that we had was the love that we have for each other. I know trauma usually bonds people like that, in that way, that kind of heightened, turbulent energy. So really, we are best friends, and I don't know if I would have gotten through it if I didn't have her. I'm so lucky. I'm so grateful. So that's sort of, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but that's sort of the beginning early years.
It's interesting because I am an army wife, and I just hear stories. So I hear the stories of my husband and the things that he had to go through, the things that he saw. And to him, they're stories. But when I see him get with another friend of mine and they discuss their circumstances, their experiences, suddenly it's this kindred spirit, this kind of, I get you, I see you, I understand you. But to us, or to people who have not experienced your life, they are stories.
Hmm.
And I want to say thank you for sharing this, because in so many ways we don't know what it's like to experience it. And so living, as you were growing up until the age of 11, you must have lived in a lot of fear, a lot of panic, being told what to do. How was that for you?
Mm. So I'll give you the results of what had happened. I became mute. I became silent for many years. I think it was 3.5 years. I was very shy. I used to always hide behind my mom, whenever someone was speaking to her. The fact that I'm even here speaking to you is a miracle, because public speaking, like many people, it's one of the greatest fear. People would rather die
Oh,
instead
yeah.
of do that. So, really having to overcome all of those aspects. But ultimately, there was also at the same time, and this is sort of what led me to come today to understand that we can live in a world of and instead of a world of or. And I'll share a little bit more about what I mean. So while all the turbulence was happening, while all the suffering, while being told what to do, but while the fear and the panic, there was also a deep inner knowing that there's something far greater than all of this. I don't know where, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if it was because of the heightened circumstances, but there was something inside of me that I just knew. I just knew that something, this is not it. This is not my end all. And so I would go within myself for many times while I was listening to music. The Sound of Music was the soundtrack to my life, by the way. The Sound of Music, the movie soundtrack, which is interesting because she grew up, or she was living in a convent, so it was very interesting. I lived in the mountains too. So anyhow, so I resonated deeply with that, and later having gotten to watch the movie, it's like, okay, she's a free spirit and all that. But ultimately, for me, I would go within myself and I would just pray. I didn't know what I was doing. Now I look back and I understand I was meditating. And I would just ask questions. I'd say, what is the universe? What is God? What is life about? Is there something more? And I would always get an answer. It sounded like me. It just sounded like me kind of answering it. I don't know how else to explain that. I know you as a medium and an intuitive know exactly what I'm speaking about.
Mhm.
But I always had the answer, and the answer was love, love, compassion, love, compassion. Just, be that presence, be that presence. And later, as an adult, in my early 20s, I started to really understand what that meant. But at the time, I was just like, what's happening? And ultimately, it was kind of like an escapism, but it was such a healing, freeing place to be when I was speaking to that presence, that all I wanted was to be around that presence more and more. So it was kind of a natural progression. And my grandmother actually was the town intuitive prior to all of the chaos and the war. Um, everyone in town would come, they'd bring her gifts and little things, and she'd read their tea leaves and their coffee, the Middle Eastern coffee that they do, they flip it. And she was usually really, really good and accurate. So she made sure that my mom always made sure that I was open and available. And, I would say things to my mom apparently, and my mom would be like, yes, yes, go with that, go with that. So I'm so blessed to have a mom. I don't know if you got to meet her at one of the events that we've
No,
done,
I
but
don't think so.
she's a magical being. She's my fairy.
That's amazing. It's funny because I've had the coffee readings done and they are incredible. I just have to tell you, I've had some coffee readings done and I was like blown away
Yeah.
by just and she was from Lebanon actually,
Oh.
and I was blown away by how accurate she was. It was remarkable. So this is you've had such a life. I mean, scoliosis, we've got skin conditions, you were mute, you grew up in the Civil War with so much unrest. How did you let's talk about finding your voice, because I
Mhm.
feel that is really important in today's society. There's so much pressure on the young kids. I'm a mom of two teenagers. Well, one is now just turned 20. I've got a daughter who is 17. Them finding their voice, them feeling like they've been pushed down in society. Mediums have been pushed into closets, healers have been pushed into closet. Everyone has been conformed, tried to conform into a box, and now that box is shifting, because I'm all about let's break that box down, because dance in your own space.
Mhm.
And that feeling of finding your voice. Now, obviously, you were young and you may not remember, but what was that like, just all of a sudden coming out with words again or speaking again, and trying to, who helped you as well? I'm sure your mum did, but
Mhm.
what was that like?
So twofold. The first one was music. So
Mm,
I remember I was taking piano. So we had moved to the States, we had escaped, we made it here as refugees. And, my school music teacher wanted to offer low income families piano lessons. And so I was taking piano lessons with her. And I remember it was, I believe, the fifth grade musical. It was The Wizard of Oz. And there were auditions, and there was a part of me that was thinking about it. But at that point, I still wasn't speaking because English was not even my first
mm,
language. I just moved here. But I was taking piano lessons with this amazing, nurturing, loving music teacher. And she actually, I don't know how it happened, but she just wanted me to sing along with the piano playing or something. And she noticed that I had what they call perfect pitch and the ear and all that. And she's like, you need to audition for this musical. And so she kind of really challenged me, and very much not pushy, but kind of molded me to audition. And I ended up getting the role of the Tin Man. And that started helping me. I said, oh, wait a minute. People like my voice. People are resonating with that. So that's the first thing that really helped me. So finding something that I was passionate about without realizing I was passionate about it.
mm,
And then the other thing was service. So once I started to become around 16, 17, I started volunteering at the homeless shelters. I started giving back. And also, in the school, I guess people who tend to feel like outsiders do this, I would be like a floater, meaning I used to hang out with the drama people, but also the sport people and the people who were into academics. So I was kind of like the friend to all, and that ended up making me like a therapist to so many of them. And I realized that I loved that. And it wasn't about me, it was about how I can serve and be of service. And that's sort of how I started my path to healing, because I ended up going to school and becoming a spiritual psychology major, and then adding all these different healing modalities and therapies, combining them into what I have created, which is the core work method. So service and music were the things that helped me find my voice. And I know you sing too. I heard that you sing.
Yes, I do. It's and it's true because music, I always refer back to that song where it says music is my first love and it will be my last. So
Hmm.
it's and music has a definite resonance with us all, and it's just learning to find that voice within. So can I ask, how did you escape Lebanon?
Oh my goodness. One day we're going to write a story about that, my mom and I.
A musical.
Yes, a musical or like a movie or whatever.
Yes.
But so basically, while all this was happening, and I've never really shared this before, but when the son, oh, so my parents were separated. My father was not in the picture after the year of one, after I was 1 years old. And when the son is about to be seven, even if the father is not present, the mother has to start kind of bringing them over to the family of the father. So his parents were like in their 90s, and I had to start to learn how to stay there and live there. So my mom was not having it. She did not want it because it wasn't safe. It was in a bad part of town. And even during small ceasefires, it was, that's when we would go, and she would kind of like do what she thought she was supposed to do by making me get comfortable with them. She said, and that lasted a few years. She said that I just didn't want that for us. I wanted us to be free. So we ended up escaping from that too, because it is such a old male, patriarchal
Mm.
society. It's definitely changing, but it still has a lot of that. And so we went. Through a series of events, very fortunate. My mom had a friend who knew the mayor and then somehow was able to um, get our visa. And then through our visa, we went through um, checkpoints where I had to hide underneath the back seat of the feet area where, the car is, and under a blanket. And if I got caught, my mom would go to jail. So, like, all these things. And then we ended up going to the um, boat. So it was like this big cargo ship boat. So nobody was on it except the workers. And so we went through that. We went to Cyprus. From Cyprus, we flew to, I believe it was Paris. And then from Paris, we flew straight to the Midwest, which is where my mom's sister was living. So it was like a whole thing.
Wow. Wow. That must have been really scary.
Oh, yeah. And then on top of all of that, the fear of being kidnapped, because my mom and her sister were getting death threats and mail and all the stuff that we're going to come after you. I mean, it was just, and me knowing all of that and hearing all about it, it's not like anybody shielded me from it. So it was definitely, there was a lot of PTSD, let's just say that I had to overcome. And I'm so grateful that I did, but now I can help others who have gone through similar
Mhm.
things.
So you living your life in fear at a very young age can sometimes set the precedent for how you live your life in your adult years. And I look at you now as a successful person, and looking at you, no one would ever realize this. And so I really want to say thank you for being honest and raw. And do you feel that all of what you have experienced in your life has actually helped you bring you to this point, has brought you to this point, and you said that you wanted to be of service. This is the reason
Hmm.
why you do it. But do you feel as though you can help people more now because you've had the life, you've lived in fear, you've
Hmm.
had to learn to surrender and just say, it's going to be what it's going to be?
Absolutely. My mom says that I think everyone has them, but she says I have cultivated my extra 5 sense superpowers. So when someone's speaking to me, I hear deeper than what, let's say, someone who hasn't been so traumatized may hear or
Mm,
see or sense or taste or like I have that thing. I didn't realize it, like a 2020, beyond 2020 vision, or beyond like when when there sounds like the police or fire trucks, nobody hears them, and then I'll hear them like 1 minute before everyone else does. So I don't know what it did. It like really, maybe it's like a survival thing, but it definitely cultivated a deep understanding, knowing, feeling, willingness to listen, to honor, and just be with. And from there, I learned how to do that for myself
mm,
because, as you know, if we're not doing it for ourselves, I definitely started by doing it for others, but then I realized that I have to do it just as much for myself. So I had to be that presence, that loving, that compassionate, that understanding presence for myself, the way that I had cultivated that I was showing up for others. That didn't even happen until in my 20s. And so from there, I believe all of those experiences, as traumatic as they became these rich blessings. I call them my golden nuggets that have really allowed me to just not judge. It's so important to just listen and feel and honor and discern without your need to make it good or bad. So I think ultimately the suffering helped me transcend duality. It helped me understand that, oh, okay, so this can happen, good, bad, whatever, but there's also something far greater than that. And from that space is where I do all my work, from whether it's I'm speaking with you today or doing a session with someone or a group or whatnot. It's always important for me to just tap in and get into that space of, hey, you've been through it, you've gone through it. This is all for a blessing. And now let's be used as the highest instrument of the divine so that it can do what it needs to do through you. And it is, I think everyone has that gift. And I don't think it has to be so much pain and suffering anymore. I think that a lot of us who did go through it, like yourself and me, and a lot of so many who have gone through it, are paving the way so that it can be easier for our children and their children. And so they can just come in awake and conscious. And I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm sure you are too.
mm, yeah. So what techniques would you suggest for people who are trying to heal trauma and
Mhm.
trying to find peace in their life, to just let go of what has been a traumatic experience and just to find peace in and just peace in their heart?
Mm. So this is really what the core work method is all about. It really uses a lot of the principles of neuroscience combined with a lot of psychological psychology. And the most important thing is, and you tapped on it earlier in the beginning, is to actually feel and honor what needs to be felt.
Mm,
So many of us are conditioned to hold things down and push them down and brush them to the side and, buck up and just kind of deal with it. But ultimately, if we're not feeling our feelings, they're going to start manifesting physical in physical parts of our body, where it starts to create breakdown and not feeling good. It's going to try to get our attention over and over again. We're going to manifest it in situations, in relationships, over and over again until we get it. So the key to feeling our feelings is actually to use our body as the barometer to do so, because your body holds energy, and wherever that energy is being held, So for example, for me, I usually feel it in my solar plex. I feel it in my stomach area. So whenever I feel like I want to say something to someone and it's going to be a hard conversation, I'll feel it there. Some people feel it in their jaw. It gets locked. Some people feel it in their throat. They start to clear their throat a lot. So wherever that may be for you, spend time and use that as feedback to honor what needs to be felt. So can we do a quick little process right
Sure, let's
now?
do
Would that
it.
be
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely.
Okay. So let's think about something that is causing us a little bit of angst. And I know for me right now, what's going on in the world and so much instability and so much pain and suffering, that sometimes when I think about it really gets to me, and so much of the fear. So wherever you feel that for yourself, or if you have something going on in your life that you're going through and it's feeling really uncomfortable, just scan your body, take a deep breath in and scan your body. So the way you scan your body is you just sort of bring your awareness from the top of the head, the crown, through the face, through the neck, the shoulders, the arms, the fingers, the chest, the solar plex, stomach, hips, thighs, knees, calves, feet, and just check to see where you may have a little discomfort
Mm.
when you think about that thing that you're thinking about. So let's do that right now. Let's take a moment. Let's take a deep breath. And once you get clear on where that is, go ahead and place your hands, if you can, wherever that is. So for me, I'm going to place my hand on my stomach, my solar plex, just a little bit above the belly. And I'm going to just allow myself to focus on that part of my body that has been holding so tightly, like a firm grip. Just allowing myself to observe. I'm not trying to fix anything. I'm not trying to change anything. I'm just bringing my attention to that discomfort. So go ahead and do that. Good. Take a deep breath in and release. So from this space, what I like to do is I like to imagine and visualize a firm grip. So like a fist like this in that part of my body. And I just imagine myself just observing it and allowing it to be exactly as it needs to be. I'm not trying to change it. I'm not trying to do anything except for observe it and feel it in that part of my body. So go ahead and do that. This is you honoring yourself. This is you loving yourself simply by feeling what needs to be felt. Your body just wants your love and attention. It's trying to tell you that it just needs more of that from you. Whenever you're uncomfortable physically, or there's some emotions and there's stories attached to it, bring it back to the body. Just bring it back to the body. Take a deep breath in and release. So, as this firm grip is being held in that part of your body, I want you to tap into what it would feel like if you, as the loving, nurturing mother, father presence, like an unconditional loving mother, father, or a grandma, or a grandpa, or a favorite aunt, just placing their hands so lovingly and gently on top of that firm grip. Imagine what that would be like, just gently, maybe caressing, just allowing with each caress, just allowing that, hey, I love you and I see you and it's okay. You're allowed to hold this firm grip. You're allowed. And just allow that presence of that peace, that love, that nurturing energy to gently surround this firm grip. Go ahead and take a deep breath in and release. And if your mind wants to wander and wants to go into a story, thank your mind, because your mind is just doing the best it can to keep you safe and protected. So sometimes it will distract you to do that. So just thank it and just bring your awareness back to that firm grip. And if you can, the love and the compassion that's being given to that firm grip by your spirit, by your I am presence. So from this space, just check to see if there's a softening, a lightness, if there's more space. And whenever that starts to happen, just let me know.
Yeah, it had started before you even said that.
Mm-hmm. So now let's allow that firm grip to just loosen some of that grip and open up a little bit so that some of the light inside of that hand can start to emerge. Just allow that light, that warmth, that peace that has always been the undercurrent of who we are, allowing that to shine. And as we notice and focus more on that firm grip unlocking and opening up, we start to see that that hand now is completely open. And this beautiful light, it can be any color of the rainbow. Just see that light through the fingertips, through the palm, just feeling that warmth, almost like that warmth of the sun, and see that loving presence that you were being to that hand continue to caress and love and appreciate and be part of that love fest for that part of you that was so not allowing itself to feel the fear, the worry, the lack. It's okay. You're allowed to feel. This is what you're here to do. It's your birthright. You are human, but you are also superhuman. So you get to be both at the same time. So all those judgments, all of those times where you were hard on yourself, can we just lovingly send that compassion and gratitude for trying to protect you the best way it could, and just allow more of that light to just permeate and saturate those experiences, those parts of you, just seeing it shining from your hand, going in all directions of your body. So now, not only where that area was that you were feeling uncomfortable, now it's going to go in all parts of your body. So your whole body is being lit up like a Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center, just allowing yourself to be lit up like the sun, like so many suns, like the moon, like the stars, just allowing yourself to be as bright as all of the ethers. Let yourself breathe that in, allowing that to just wash over and activate any parts of you that were feeling unseen, heard, unacknowledged. We're going to allow all those parts of you to feel seen, heard, and acknowledged right now. And just repeat after me. Dear self,
Dear self,
I see you,
I see you,
I honor you,
I honor you,
and I love you.
and I love you,
And so it is.
and so it is.
Good. Just bring your energy back into your body. Give yourself a big hug and just feeling that gratitude for this sacred moment that you got to create in this now moment, now reality. You got to be that loving presence for yourself. You no longer need something or someone outside of you to fill that for you. You can be that for you. It was your body was trying to get your attention, your emotions were just trying to get your attention. All of those things are, I call them my children. My emotions are my children. My body is like my child, and I'm here to love and care for all of it. Breathe that in And as we do that, we start to naturally do that for our loved ones. We start to naturally do that for the world around us. We start to naturally transcend separation and illusions of lack and separation and fear and worry and confusion. We start to really understand who we are. Who we are far succeeds all of these experiences. We are so powerful. We are so divine. Let's breathe that in and repeat after me one more time. I am.
I am.
The universe is.
The universe is.
I am.
I am.
The universe is.
The universe is.
Simply because I am.
Simply because I am.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Good. Gently opening your eyes, getting back into your body, and just check in with yourself. Check to see how you feel. Do you feel even a slight ounce better? Do you feel lighter? Do you
Oh,
feel more
yeah.
peace? Good.
It's like it was just here, and then you were doing it, and all of a sudden it just slipped away.
This is you. This is who you are, my friend.
Oh, well, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, that is just a remarkable and powerful, very, very, very powerful technique. I think that can certainly help people through this period of unrest, through this time that we're going through. Um, and you said earlier that right now you've been, this is reminding you what we're going through of what happened to you. And so I do think that that technique is just so powerful, and so many people experience a
Yes.
release.
Yes.
So
And
thank
whoever
you.
and those who are tuning in, please let us know how you experienced that. I love hearing
Mm,
about your experiences.
absolutely. So you and I were talking before we came on here about the spiritual industry. You know, um, I felt as though I was relatively new in the industry. I'm sure you did, yeah. But and I've had a lot of bullying, mainly from a community that I have been part of, which is a spiritual community. And our and also not only from that, but from other people in my world. And this is something that you and I spoke about how it's happened. How do you feel that you've had to rise above that? How did you rise above that to become Emmanuel Dagher, the healer, the this
Mhm.
incredible guy that I'm speaking to now?
Thank you so much. I think it really does go beyond just the spiritual community. I think it happens in
Mm-hmm.
all communities, and I think anyone who's tuning in can relate. But as you mentioned, and as we were talking about earlier, it is a little bit shocking to see that it's still happening in the spiritual community, because people who come into spiritual communities usually are free spirits and people who are outside of the they don't conform, and they're very usually very open-minded. But I think what happens is when we get caught up in that he said, she said, gossip, all that stuff that happens in the spiritual community, what I think is it's just highlighting that there's more work for those who are the teachers and the presenters and the speakers. And really, I see a lot of them looking down at their audience. And for me, one of the things that has always been key is to know that I am an eternal student. I am always down for learning and studying and growing and expanding. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm a rising Sag, so Sag, they love to always learn. And so I don't see myself as a teacher, although I'm grateful that many do. I always see myself as someone who's curious and always wants to learn and listen and understand. And so I think that really has helped me kind of bypass so much of the noise and the static that happens in our community and just stay in my own lane. One of the things that I also realize is when people do that, when they sort of go out of their way to bully or be
Mm-hmm.
unkind to someone, it's usually because that's how they feel about themselves. And it's usually because they are still operating in lack. It's not operating in a very abundant world. So, one thing that, and I get to talk about it now, which I'm so excited, one thing that I've realized on this spiritual journey is we have the choice. We can live in a world of or, which is this or that. I have to be spiritual or wealthy. I have to do this, or, I have to be in a relationship, or I have to focus on my career. But what if we can be in a world of and?
Mm-hmm.
I can be successful in my career and I can be successful in my relationship. Maybe one is going to take a little more refining and work, but I can have all of those experiences. And so this is the way that I've realized is whenever I see someone doing amazing work, one of the things that I do usually is to go out of my way to let them know how inspiring they are to me and how they are just doing it. They're doing it. And sometimes, they don't respond, and that's okay. They may think, oh, who's this person? But a lot of times they're so courteous and gracious, and they're like, oh my God, thank you. And to me, what that is I'm admiring. I'm admiring. And we've heard this often. I think Esther Hicks talks about it, that, when you see things in your reality and it's happening for someone else, act as if it's happening for you, because it really is. We are all connected. And so that's something that I've always adapted. And it's so important to do that. So one of the things that I am passionate about is to connect with amazing beings like you and Carol. And I have so many friends that I just always want to make sure that we are here honoring each other, celebrating each other, lifting each other up. And I do believe this is where the new earth, which it's here, the new earth is here, but that's where we're all headed, to be able to operate from that space. It's going to take a little bit of work because so many are still in survival, but I don't usually take it as personally anymore as I used to when I first started. They'd be like, oh, who are you? You're so young. Oh, you're so skinny. I mean, I got that from, oh, have you lost weight? By the way, that's like, to me, one of the worst things you could say, because I've always been someone who's a little on the thinner side. So it's like no different than saying to someone who has had weight issues, it's the same thing. So
Mm-hmm.
they just think that they can do that. But I understand now that I'm not going to take it personally. And I know how to have boundaries, which I didn't used to have.
Yeah.
I'll say, hey, that's not really nice, because it actually is something that I struggled with growing up. So, really allowing yourself to be open, vulnerable, and not take things personally, and usually understanding that it has nothing to do with you and it's usually about how they feel about themselves, has helped me tremendously.
Yeah, that's amazing.
How about you?
Oh, well, I mean, for me, I think it's been a process. I think for me, it really has been a process, and I found that I just had to lift myself and become the bigger person. And where I could have completely let go of mediumship, which is what I wanted to do at the time, I wanted to run and hide. I wanted to run under the table, never to be seen again, never wanted to come out of my house. And in the end, it was actually a lot of the people that were saying, it was the praise. It was, Lisa, you change lives, you change lives, you change lives, you're good at what you do. And it was then I started to have to take away the negativity to start hearing the positivity. And then I got to a point where I started to detach and I looked at it from a third party angle. And by looking at a third party angle, I started to realize that this wasn't me. Again, much like you, it wasn't me, it was them. And it was a reflection of what they wanted to portray into the world. And I just had to rise above it and realize that I'm on my pathway. Everyone else is on their pathway. And we're all together on this pathway of a shift of love. And ultimately, I'm just going to stay in my lane and I'm going to do me. And you can do you, however that is right for you. But this is my lane that I'm in control of. And so I'm staying in control of me. And that's how I had to handle it.
And I'm so grateful because we need you.
We need us. Yes, that's right. Thank you. My final question. If somebody is watching this at 4 o'clock in the morning and they are struggling, they are needing some help, they don't know exactly what to do, what are your words of wisdom that you can offer right now if someone is really in a place in their life where they're just, they're about to give up?
Hmm. Oh man, and so many of us have been in those experiences. So what I would share to you, first of all, is that you are not alone, that please, I'm accessible. I know Lisa's accessible. If you are feeling in some way lost or isolated, reach out. That's so important. Whoever it is, whoever you feel you trust, whoever you feel is someone who is a good sounding board for you. And I just want you to also remember that you got you went through so much to get here, and seasons always come and go, and feelings and emotions are the exact same thing. Similar to the process that we did earlier, when you feel your feelings, you create space for that true undercurrent of who you are to emerge. That undercurrent is peace, it's love, it's flow, it's ease and grace. That's who you are. So if you're feeling like there's something that's causing you to move out of that, just know that it's part of, whether it's your experiences that you've gone through or the collective right now. There's a lot of free floating thoughts. There's a lot of free floating fear and anxiety. And sometimes as empaths, we tend to take it on. We tend to internalize it and make it our own. So just know that if you're feeling that way, it's because you're a healer, you're sensitive, because you're feeling things deeply. And what needs to happen is for you to understand that the fact that you're still here means that you have overcome a lot. And just like the seasons, that emotion, if you just let yourself be with it for a little bit instead of pushing it down or kind of brushing it to the side, just be with it. Be that loving presence. If you can eventually work up to that. So it may not happen right away, but just you can start by feeling and just being and sitting still for as long as you need. Take some deep breaths and just allow that storm to pass, because it will always pass. And then that sun will start shining again. And you can always reach out to me and anyone who you feel you trust in a way that will empower you and give you words of wisdom to remember that you are perfect exactly as you are.
Emmanuel, thank you so much for your wisdom, your thoughts, your love, and just for being who you are in the world.
I had so much fun, and I'm so grateful for you, and I'm so grateful for everyone tuning in. I love you. Please feel that. I really do. And I want you to know that you are extraordinary and you are here to step into that.